For those who wonder what the value of a quarter is today, stop and think of the value of the coin back in the days of the Great Depression. R.C. McEntyre remembers in A Quarter for Christmas. Today, 25 cents, a quarter, doesn't buy much, not even a stamp for a first-class letter. But in its day, the 30s especially, 25 cents purchased many an item, sometimes with change left over. In 1928, when I was in the 4th grade in Jefferson Grade School in Spokane, Washington, we drew names of class members at Christmas with a reminder we were not to spend more than 25 cents for a gift. While shopping in downtown Spokane, my mother and I came across the ideal present. In the 30s, grade school boys wore neckties with their shirts. Long neckties were in vogue. Some neckties were already tied and attached to one end of the elastic which went around the neck, under the collar, and fastened onto the other side of the pre-tied knot. If a suit was worn, a small handkerchief of the same material as the tie was folded and placed in the front upper left coat pocket. Our chosen gift contained such a tie and handkerchief. Best of all, the boxed gift also contained a small pocket knife. The knife caught my eye before the tie. In the 20s and 30s, most grade school boys carried small pocket knives. We never used them as weapons, but mostly to satisfy our male egos. The entire gift, tie, handkerchief, and knife, came to 25 cents. It was taken home, wrapped in appropriate Christmas paper, and presented to Roy. Like me, Roy was most excited about the knife. In the 1930s, 25 cents would also buy 5 candy bars. My favorite was a Butterfinger, a peanut butter center covered with milk chocolate. A quarter would pay for 2 hamburgers and leave 5 cents left over. A new sandwich appeared out west. Called Coney Islands in honor of their Atlantic coast beginning, they were hot dogs served in a hot dog bun, covered with chopped onions and a spicy dark brown sauce, and served with a long dill pickle slice. Coney Islands sold for 8 cents each, or 2 for 15 cents. After purchasing 2 Coney Islands, 10 cents remained from a quarter for 2 bottles of soda pop. Coney Islands became a popular fad, and for a period overshadowed hamburgers in popularity. 25 cents went a long ways in a 1930s grocery store. Bread was 9 cents a loaf, hamburger 9 cents a pound, lettuce 4 cents a head, and onions, carrots, and beets 3 cents a bunch, or 2 bunches for a nickel. The most expensive item was butter. It could take the whole quarter. A quarter, if you were lucky enough to have one, was a handy item during the Depression when going to a movie. If an adult attended a picture show after 5 p.m., it took the whole quarter. Buying the ticket for the same show before 5 p.m. cost just 15 cents. Those under 12 years of age paid 10 cents any time. This left 15 cents for a 10-cent hamburger and a 5-cent bottle of brightly colored soda pop. 25 cents bought 6 grade school writing tablets. The first tablet was provided by the school district, along with a 2-inch pink pearl pencil eraser. After the first writing tablet was used, we had to provide our own paper. The unruled newsprint tablets measured 6.5 inches by 8.5 inches and were half an inch thick. The paper was attached to a light cardboard back with a light brown wrapping paper cover. Tablets were only for pencil work. They could be purchased at the little store that was a block and a half from Jefferson Grade School. Spokane's morning paper, the Spokesman Review, cost 25 cents a week, 7 issues including a large Sunday edition. Once during the Depression, I was sent to pay 25 cents on an overdue $7.50 phone bill. The phone had been turned off because we had failed to pay our bill, which was normally $2.50 a month. My mother asked me to ask the phone company if paying 25 cents could guarantee the phone would be turned back on. When I asked at the payment window, The clerk immediately went into a conference with 2 other clerks. When the first clerk returned and said, "Can you bring us another quarter tomorrow?" I realized the power of a 30s quarter. No, I didn't return the next day with another quarter, but the phone was on that evening. Although they needed all the money they could get, the phone company didn't want to drop an unreliable customer. In the 30s, as today, a little money was better than none. A 30s Christmas quarter went a long way when it came to buying and mailing neighborhood Christmas greetings. A flat card with a simple "Merry Christmas" and an envelope could be bought for 1.5 or 2 cents. Christmas cards could be mailed within the city limits for 1.5 cents, provided there was no message, just name only, and the envelopes were not sealed. 25 cents was all the money I had to spend for my mother's present one Depression Christmas. I settled for a tan 9-inch plaster of Paris lion with an inner surprise. It was filled with bath crystals. It cost 9 cents. So the next time a quarter crosses your palm, treat it with respect. It's been through a lot and bought a lot. Even today, I hope a quarter will somehow assist you in making your Christmas a merry one. Is there ain't a Santa Claus? That's what millions of children around the world have faced sooner or later in their young lives. Virginia Jones faced it when she was just 6 years old. The answer caused her to have her worst Christmas Eve.
It seemed we always started our trips at some unearthly hour, and this trip was to be no exception. I realized that as soon as my father ripped the warm bed covers off of me, saying, "Time to get up." This was my father's favorite way of getting action on a cold, dark winter's morning, and it worked. The upstairs of our home had no heating system, and at 30 degrees, one didn't linger in a coverless bed. The only bright spot that morning was the fact that it was the day before Christmas, and we were going 100 miles to spend the day with my beloved cousins. I grabbed my clothes and tore downstairs. In the warm dining room, there was a little corner behind the wood stove that I could squeeze into and dress in comfort. I was careful not to get too close to the extremely hot stove. A few burns had taught me caution. My 8-year-old brother was right on my heels, complaining because I had reached the corner first. Being older, he felt the corner should be his. It wasn't long before we were eating thick slices of my father's home-cured bacon and our own ranch eggs and chattering about the trip. By 5 a.m., my brother Ellis and I were tucked into the back seat of our old car with a warm lap robe. My father buttoned up the side curtains. Mama was in the front seat, surrounded by Christmas presents and the eggs, jam, and other ranch products we were taking along. For a short while, everything was pleasant. Then the cold began to seep in around the side curtains. Finally, 2 of them came unbuttoned and flapped. Ellis and I complained loudly of the cold. At last, Father couldn't stand our griping any longer, stopped the car and fastened them. But in the typical way of those side curtains, with their minute isinglass windows, they were soon flapping once more. This time was worse, as a cold rain was now falling and we were getting damp. Muttering a quiet but forceful oath, Father got out again. With a little wire he refastened the curtains, but rain continued to leak in. Ellis and I began to quarrel over the lap robe. He pulled one way and I pulled the other. I whined, "Ellis has all the robe." Ellis yelled, "I do not. Jenny's on my side of the seat." Father's nerves were no doubt frayed by then. He stormed, "If you kids don't cut that out, I'll stop and let both of you out right here." The car slowed. Father had threatened us with this many times, and though he'd never done so, it always served to settle an issue. I retreated to my side of the seat at Father's tone. Mama, wanting to have peace on this trying morning, said patiently, "Besides, Santa Claus won't bring you presents if this keeps up, so do try and behave." Ellis answered, "Ah, I don't think there is a Santa Claus." At that horrible thought, tears came to my eyes. Mama glanced at Father. Now, children, of course there is a Santa Claus." Ellis was quiet for a minute. Then he glared at me and slipped down onto the floor of the car. For a minute, I was joyful over having the robe and back seat all to myself. But gradually I began to miss the warmth of another body and wished Ellis were back again on the seat. But Ellis always had the ability to sleep on the car floor and proceeded to do so. I wrapped the robe tighter around me. The endless trip was finally over, and our reunion with our cousins was extremely joyful. The day was spent speculating on what we were getting for Christmas, both from our parents and Santa. We peeked at the packages under the Christmas tree from a distance, guessing who they were for and what was in the package. My brother was the oldest of the four of us. When he again announced, "I'm sure there is no real Santa Claus," Francis, the youngest, and I went flying to our parents. "Ellis keeps saying there's no Santa," we cried. We were assured that Ellis was wrong and Santa Claus would come that night. We knew Ellis liked to tease us and decided that's what he was doing. At last bedtime came. Our parents had difficulty in persuading us to go to bed. We had each written a letter to Santa and pinned it to the top of our stocking, which hung by the big fireplace. At the head of the stairway of my cousin's home was a large balcony. Here the fathers had set up 4 camp cots, and this, to our great joy, was where we were to be bedded down. Sleep seemed far away. We were hilarious. Repeated visits and threats from one or the other of our parents finally quieted us some, especially the threat that Santa wouldn't come until we were asleep. We shut our eyes and pretended. After a few minutes of self-enforced stillness, my brother whispered, "I'm going to see what's going on." Lois said, "Someone will hear you and Santa won't come." Ellis was not easily discouraged. He tiptoed partway down the staircase. In a minute he was back. He had difficulty keeping his voice down as he announced, "Well, that proves it. There's no Santa Claus. Our parents are putting stuff in all the stockings. I saw Uncle Frank put a toothbrush in mine, so it's really true. There is no Santa Claus." Lois said stoically, "That's what I was afraid of." Francis and I burst into tears. "Shh," cautioned Ellis, "or you won't get anything." I quietly cried myself to sleep that Christmas Eve, but I will have to admit that, while unstuffing stockings the next morning, things seemed as much fun as ever. It's so easy to forget and to pretend again.
Billy Mills and his orchestra performs the March of the Toys on the Fibber, McGee, and Molly show of December 23rd, 1947. There are two special seasons observed in December, Christmas and Hanukkah. How does it feel to be a little boy caught between the glitter of the seasons and a father immersed in the despair of the Depression? Mike Lipstock shares his memory of the purple chip.
It was 1930, the year Hanukkah and Christmas came at the same time of the year. Everything was changing before my eyes. The dirty gray slush had been shoveled, and the whole neighborhood had a clean new look. Tinsel and colored bits of paper hung from poles, and balls of beautiful glass hung like jewels from indoor trees. Everyone smiled, and I smiled back. But at 7, I had no idea what the holidays were. When I asked my teacher about them, she smiled and said, "Hanukkah? Christmas? Ask your mother, Mike." No one in my house ever spoke about these holidays, but boy, did I want to know. "What's Christmas?" I asked my best friend Al. "You get presents." "Why?" "I think it has something to do with God." "Who's God?" "You don't know?" "No one ever told me, Al." "I think he's someone up in the sky." "Oh." That afternoon I sat at the kitchen table and asked my mother, "What's Christmas, Ma?" She answered in Yiddish rather than her broken English. "I think it's when the Christian God was born." "What's God?" "I think he's a kind of spirit who looks over everyone." "Is he up in the sky?" "I think he's everywhere, Mike." "Can we get one of those trees like Al has, Ma? It has pretty glass balls and candy and lights on every single branch." "It's not for us, boy chick." "Why, Ma?" "We're Jewish. We have a menorah. That's almost like a tree, but when it's lit each night, every Jewish kid gets a present for 8 whole days." "Wow, that's great, Ma. Are we getting one?" "No, Mike. Your father doesn't believe in Hanukkah, or even God anymore." "How come, Ma?" "The Depression, boy chick. He hasn't worked in 5 months, and he blames it on everything, especially religion." "Are we still Jewish, Ma?" "Sure, Mike, sure." "Know what, Ma? I wish we believed in menorah and Christmas." She pulled me close to her and kissed me on the cheek. "Mike," she said, "our holiday is called Hanukkah, not menorah. Hanukkah, boy chick. Remember that." It wasn't long before my father came home. I remember how my mother hugged and kissed him. "How was it, Max? Did you find anything?" "Nah," he answered. "I'll walk my feet off. There's no jobs in New York. All I hear is, 'It's a depression, it's a depression.'" "We're running low on rent money, Max." "I know," he answered. "Max, we got to talk about Mike. He's asking me questions about God. You can't shut him out. He's got to have religion." "Ruthie," he said, "you know how I feel about religion and those Hanukkah stories. I just can't swallow them. But look, you've always been a believer. Take Mike and go back to shul. Just leave me out, okay?" "All he wants is a present, Max. I still got the $2 silver my Bubba left me. Take them and get him a present, Max, please." I fell asleep that night with the thought of Santa Claus being stopped at our front door by Pop, with a scowl on his face and his arms blocking the door. In school the next day, Miss Harrison reminded us, "Don't forget, Mike, you and Alfred must bring in a bulb for the Christmas tree." Al looked at me and said, "My old man isn't working. He don't have the money for an extra bulb." "Mine too," I said. "He'll be mad if I ask him. I better not." In the afternoon I pleaded, "Ma, I gotta have a purple glass bulb for the Christmas tree. Everyone, even Al, is bringing one in." I don't know what kind of magic Mom used that night, but in the morning I found a package wrapped in tissue paper in a red and green paper bag. Pop had bought me the biggest purple glass bulb they had in the store. At 7:30 a.m. we walked to my school. Pop held my right hand, and in the left I gripped my purple Christmas bulb. We walked through the hallway, and in my excitement I tripped on the threshold. As I fell, the bag flew from my hand and smashed against Miss Harrison's desk. Everyone froze. Voices stopped. Time stood still until I picked myself up. My bulb was lying in smithereens. I was heartbroken. When Miss Harrison unwrapped my treasure, tears ran down my face. She put an arm around my shoulder, and we both dug through the broken glass. I pulled out an 1.5 inch piece of jagged purple glass and held it in the palm of my hand. In the center was the loop, the part that held the bulb to the tree. I looked at Miss Harrison and asked, "Do you think we can get it on?" "Come on, Mike," she said. "We'll give it a try." We twisted the wire around the broken piece of bulb, and standing on a ladder, Miss Harrison reached the giant star on the very top. She worked the chip right into the crown, and when a light beam reflected, it sparkled like a diamond a million miles away. The chip of glass saved my day. Now, if Mom worked her magic on Pop again, who knows? Maybe we'd get a menorah. There were still 6 more days of Hanukkah left.
There is nothing more difficult to do than to let go of a loved one. Cherished memories help us in such times of sadness. Marion Schieberlein relates just such a memory of her grandmother and the last Christmas tree.
We had no way of knowing it was Grandmother's last Christmas. When I was a little girl, Grandma read stories to me by the hour. She taught me the beauty of a cracked teacup, an oddly shaped cloud, a crooked road. I'll always remember her little house with the big willow tree in the backyard. Because my mother hated picnics, Grandmother took me to all the Sunday school picnics, filling up a basket of potato salad and hard-boiled eggs and cheese sandwiches, not to mention the pickles and chocolate cake. Grandmother was responsible for my being overweight, but I didn't care. At that age, I was so in love with life, I didn't mind tipping the scales at 10 pounds more than I should. Grandmother was also the most religious woman I ever knew. Her husband had been a minister. His sudden death at 50 made her a widow, but she was never bitter. She went right on, continuing Christmas for us in her little house. We loved the little tree she decorated with the ornaments from Germany. We never got tired of looking at their unique fragility. Her cookies were special, too, mostly anise, rolled out with a rolling pin from Germany. Some were soft, some were so hard you had to dunk them in coffee for a long time. The last Christmas was no different from the others, only Grandmother looked like a trapped bird, trembling. She wanted to be off, I guess, finally into heaven. She was 88 years old. We all noticed how rickety she walked, but she didn't use a cane. The last Christmas Eve she was with us, everything was as perfect and as beautiful as it had ever been. She must have known that everything old, everything beautiful, was gradually vanishing. She sat at the table with us, nibbling at her food: chicken, potatoes and gravy, peas and carrots, mince pie. We noticed that she hardly touched it, while we ate as if it were our last meal. Grandmother kept looking at the Christmas tree. Feelings from everywhere must have gathered in the little pool that was in her chest. She had known better days with Jesus, and wondered if he realized what low status she had sunk to lately. Loneliness. Of course, none of us knew this. "Grandma, your hand-crocheted ornaments are prettier than ever," someone said. I know. I still wash and starch them every year. The birds and the angel faces and the other ornaments from Germany were as sparkling as ever. Then Grandmother did a strange thing. She got up and went over to her old upright piano and told us to gather round. "I still remember O Tannenbaum," she said, and her fingers caressed the old yellow keys in something like the tune. Her eyes shone. She seemed young again as we sang above her whispering piano. The old bonfire of Christmas had started in her heart. The warm winter sunlight fell on her, shadowing a halo. The face bright of Christmas danced in her trembling hands. Then she got up and went over to the tree. "It is more beautiful this year than it's ever been," she said. Nobody said a word. We wanted this moment to last forever, forever in our memories. The fragile, eggshell old grandmother giving us her blessing in her own way. At that moment, Grandmother looked to me like the most beautiful woman who ever lived. Her tree seemed to come alive. The pine branches glistened. The real scent of the pine needles was so good to smell. Underneath the tree stood the tiny manger her husband had carved in his spare time. Grandmother knew it was her moment, her tree, her Christmas, her manger. Everything else was straw.
Finally, here is a memory in verse by Angie Monnens. She remembers a country Christmas long ago. The postman rode on into town, gallopin' down the trail, dressed in cowboy boots and hat, bringin' the Christmas mail. Greetings from aunts and uncles, wishin' us Christmas cheer. Though it was fun to read the cards, we sure wished they were here. We sat around the old wood stove, watchin' the dancin' flames, sippin' Christmas cider and playin' family games. We all sang Christmas carols of peace, goodwill to all, hung mistletoe and holly up along the cabin wall. We helped Mama bake the cookies, frosted them in red and green. Papa cut the biggest Christmas tree that I had ever seen. We had just one small string of lights, a few shiny balls of blue, wrapped golden garland round the tree, hung ginger cookies too. Sweet smells of pine and chocolate, of homemade buns and bread, now filled our little noses until it was time for bed. But first we set a plate out for Santa, if he'd come, a piece of Mama's Christmas pie and a little shot of rum. He'd need the rum to keep him warm on his journey through the sky. At least that's what my papa said, and my papa do not lie. Though we got no company with his sleigh and 8 reindeer, Santa sure enough brought us gifts on Christmas Eve that year. I got the doll I'd wished for, made of yarn and cotton rags. Sticky colored candies filled 2 small brown paper bags. Papa didn't have much money, but he did the best he could. Made the little boys some trucks and cars he whittled out of wood. Christmases have come and gone, but none was quite so dear as that country Christmas long ago, filled with family, love, and cheer. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at those special seasons gone by. Till next time, this is Ken Tate, reminding you to always remember the best, and God bless.